the radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this October 1st, 2024. As maybe, we'll see, Iran basically sets itself up for war. So I assume everybody is aware of the breaking news. Iran launched earlier today, it literally half an hour ago, hundreds of ballistic missiles. It's not clear how many exactly. Initially, it was 102, but then the estimates grew to 300 to 400 missiles at Israel, both central Israel, southern Israel. Everybody in the country basically has been in air raid shelters over the last period. Israeli air defense systems were activated. These are ballistic missiles. You remember the last attack by Iran on Israel in April? We had a lot of time because they launched it with drones. The drones took hours to get to Israel. Then they added ballistic missiles. And the drones were mainly shot down during their path to Israel, over Jordan, Syria, and on the way. Ballistic missiles, you can't do that. It takes 12 minutes, basically, from launch to entering Israeli airspace. So here you're not relying on your Air Force. You're not relying on airplanes shooting them down. That is not possible. Here you're relying on your ground-to-air missile defense systems that are activated. Now, Israel probably has the best ground-to-air defense systems in the world for these kind of attacks. I don't know that anybody else can match it. I think Israel's is now probably superior to the United States even. It has the Arrow 2 and the Arrow 3 missile systems built by Israel for the purpose of protecting Israel for this specific purpose. That is, the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 were specifically for ballistic missiles launched from Iran. That is what they exist to do. That's what they were developed and designed to do. This is the great advantage that Israel has, being an advanced, technological, relatively wealthy country. It can design its own weapons. It can design its own weapons for the purpose of the specific threats it faces, something that no other country, certainly in the Middle East, can do, and very few countries, I think, in the world have the kind of military technology infrastructure that Israel does. So the Arrow 2 and the Arrow 3 were put to a test tonight. We don't know the exact results, but so far it looks pretty amazing. While some of the missiles did impact, and you can see photos online of missiles impacting. There's still not, clear, definitive evidence about what exactly happened. So far, this specific attack, has ended, and Israelis are now being told that they can leave their shelters. He is also reporting, this is the spokesman for the IDF, is also reporting that no casualties have thus far been reported. Hopefully that stays where it is and there are no surprises, but so far no casualties, and that many of these ballistic missiles were intercepted and shot down. How many, again, we'll only know that in the future. This is, as far as I can tell, and as far as I'm reading, the largest ballistic missile attack that anybody has launched, that anybody has absorbed in history. This is bigger than what, in terms of just the sheer number, though the bombs are different, than what Ukraine has faced from the Russians. Some impacts, no casualties. Part of that is probably, we don't know, but probably the fact that Israelis knew about this in advance and basically went into the shelters. Now, I mean, there's a lot going on here. So, one of the questions I think that is on everybody's minds is, or should be on everybody's minds is, did Israel know that this was coming before the missiles were launched? And did the United States? And it seems like the Iranians basically told the Americans this was going to happen. The expectation was it was happening today. The missile launches were put into place. There's reason to believe, and again, this is not definitive, this is me somewhat speculating based on what I know so far, that Israel and the United States, certainly the United States, could have destroyed the missile launches before the missiles were launched. So that was possible. Indications are that Israel did not do that at the explicit request of the United States. At the explicit request of the United States. Now, whether as part of that the United States promised to aid in the offensive, in the retaliation or not, is unclear. But this is a case in which Israel decided to sit on its hands, primarily because America told it to. And the idea is that now that this attack is played out, Israel will have the legitimacy in quotes, I say, because they already have the legitimacy, to actually launch an attack, direct attack on the Iranians. And preemption would have said, well, we don't know what would have happened. Now note that the foreign policy establishment, if you will, the people in CNN and other places are already setting the stage for, oh no, Israel does not have legitimacy. Here's Ian Bremmer. Somebody asked me yesterday a question about a comment Ian Bremmer made. Listen to this. This is about as disgusting as it gets. This is a foreign policy expert, right? Looks like next to no casualties from Iranian strike on Israel. Telegraphed significantly in advance to the Americans. So the Americans knew this was coming. Why wasn't it preempted? We don't believe in preemption anymore? So looks like next to no casualties from Iranian strike on Israel, telegraphed significantly in advance to the Americans. Iran, hoping to reestablish some minimal level of deterrence while avoiding escalation. I mean, what Israel should have done is it should have asked, I don't know, a certain number of Israeli citizens who were willing to be sacrificial lambs to stand out in the street and take the hit. They should have prevented their air defense systems from working so Israel could take a few casualties. So a few people could die. For what? Could die so that Israel will have, according to Ian Bremmer at least, a reason to retaliate. Because look, I mean, the truth is, the Iranians don't want to escalate. They really don't. Christian Amanpour said that the same. Yeah, they had to do this, but they don't want escalation. Who the F cares whether Iran wants escalation or not? Of course Iran doesn't want escalation. Of course Iran doesn't want an all-out war with Israel. They want to be able to send their proxies and attack Israel. They want to harass Israelis. They want to kill as many as they can. And they don't want Israel to retaliate. But for Western commentators to just buy into that line is disgusting, dishonest, truly horrific. Akira says, I don't know, Yaron, that's too far-fetched. It's almost a conspiracy. It's not. I mean, this would not be the first time that the United States has asked Israel not to preempt an attack against it. Certainly, that is well documented. It was the case during the Yom Kippur War, and it has happened many, many times over the years, and I have no doubt that it is happening that it happened. I wouldn't at all be surprised if it happened today. I don't know for a fact that that is the case, but it certainly is consistent with American behavior, and certainly consistent with no escalation, Joe, no escalation Biden administration. It really is, disgusting and horrific. All right, what is going on here? Why is this not coming up? All right. Just so you know, just to reassure you guys, Biden and Kamala are currently in the White House Situation Room, and they've ordered the U.S. military across the Middle East to aid in the defense of Israel. Note that that is not what is needed right now. What is needed right now is an unequivocal response by Israel. This is the second time Iran has felt emboldened to send hundreds of projectiles towards Israel. Yes, it is the second time they have failed to kill any Israelis. But the standard is not outcome. The standard is intent. These missiles were shot down over Tel Aviv. They were shot down over the central Israel, its most populated area. Clearly, this was intended for mass casualties. The fact that Israel has the technology and the ability to shoot these things down, some of these missiles is being reported right now, were launched against Israel's nuclear research facility in Dimona, in the Negev, in the south of Israel. It is currently unknown if the facility suffered any impacts, but my expectation is that that is probably the most guarded facility in the entire state of Israel. So I think it would be a surprise if that facility got hit. So the Iranians are targeting Israel's nuclear facility. Guess what Israel should do? Truly horrific. Somebody saying on the chat that a Palestinian was killed by one of these missiles, ballistic missiles, Iranian ballistic missiles in Jericho. We did see some impact on the West Bank. Hezbollah was launching missiles against the West Bank, and now it looks like the Iranians are. EOS says, funny that Israel has nukes but did not sign any agreement. Yeah, why would Israel sign an agreement? Israel needs the nukes for its own self-defense. It's had nukes for a long time, and it will use nukes if the circumstances require it. Why would it sign an agreement? And with who would it sign an agreement? Note that Israel's nukes are not a threat to the West. They're not a threat to Europe. They're not a threat to the United States. They're a threat to the Iranians. They're a threat to others, and they should be. Israel's nukes are meant for self-defense. Iran's nukes stand behind a commitment of the Iranian regime to bring Sharia law to the world. In other words, it is a threat to Europe. Iran is a regime that encourages its worshippers on Fridays to pray death to Americans. It is a threat to America. It is a threat to Europe. It is a threat to the free world. Yes, Iran shouldn't be required to have an agreement. Its nuclear program should be destroyed by the West, by the people threatened by it. So to equate Israel with Iran, to equate a country that is defending itself, that has no reason and no intention of threatening the West with an Iranian regime that not only oppresses, an authoritarian Iranian regime, totalitarian Iranian regime that oppresses its own people, but persists for decades in threatening the West, to equate those is pretty disgusting, guys. Nukes used in self-defense is not suicide, not if you use them right? Hiroshima and Nagasaki was not suicide. Israel using nukes to defend itself is not suicide. It depends where they launch them to and who's going to launch against Israel. If, let's say Israel launched a nuke against Iran, who would launch against Israel exactly? Nobody. So don't be silly. I mean, and remember, Israel doesn't have nuclear bombs. It doesn't have one or two or three. It has many. It doesn't just have them on ground facilities. It has them in many places. Russia's not too busy. Russia just wouldn't do it. Russia doesn't want a nuke in Moscow. Israel could reach Moscow with a nuke. So nobody is going to retaliate from Israel using an atomic bomb against Iran. Not that they will, not that they're going to, but if that ever happens. So I mean, there's just a lot of confusion and misunderstanding going on our chat. All right, it does look like Israel has dozens of aircraft over eastern Syria. Eastern Syria would be on the way to Iran. So it looks like whatever counteroffensive Israel is engaged in might already have started. Another round, it looks like a ballistic missiles heading towards Israel from Iran. Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 anti-ballistic missiles interceptors are being launched all over central Israel right now. So even though that was an hour ago. Sorry, that was an hour ago. Ignore everything I just said. Ignore, I don't want to scare people. No, there is no second round of ballistic missiles as far as I can tell. I was reading this is the challenge of doing something with live going on. So, yeah, the website I'm looking for is overloaded here. So here's the question. Israel is going to retaliate. That retaliation might be the beginnings of it might be happening right now as we speak. It's really hard to tell, but Israel will retaliate, and it won't retaliate like last time with a few bombs taking out some a defense system batteries on the Iranian side. The retaliation this time will be significantly harsher and more substantial. The question then becomes how it's going to retaliate, what it's actually going to do, and second, will the United States participate? Is the United States, it seems like Kamala and Biden are assuring everybody that they are dedicated to the defense of Israel. Maybe that's the case, but are they dedicated enough to actually engage in offensive capabilities? Are they willing to use, the vast, massive military resources that are currently in the Middle East, U.S. military resources that are currently in the Middle East, to make sure that this Iranian regime is history, is toast? The United States could do that. They could do that from the air. They wouldn't have to put boots on the ground if they so decided. Oh, there's some pretty dramatic pictures here. There's a big piece of a missile stuck inside the ground, part of a ballistic missile that landed in the town of Tel Sheva, but it's just pretty dramatic. Israeli airspace is now reopened, so they've opened flights. So Israel does not expect another round. Interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Israel retaliates, when it retaliates, and how it retaliates. Because if they've opened up the airspace, it's not clear what they're anticipating or what they expect moving forward. So it's going to be interesting, both whether Israel retaliates, how it retaliates, where it retaliates, what it actually does. It is also the same. It also going to be interesting to see whether the United States is willing to finally deal with the threat towards the United States that has existed for, what is it now, 40-something years, emanating from Iran. This is the opportunity. This is the time. The resources are in place. it's will America take this opportunity to assert itself and to, basically rid itself of the regime that is its enemy and is a constant threat to itself. Ian Barban goes on to say, Iran and proxies have no effective way to reestablish deterrence, and the Iranians are deeply concerned about Americans joining the war. Yes, they are, and they should be. They should be. But launching, 200 ballistic missiles in this direction is not a good way to express that concern. Maybe committing to, getting rid of your nuclear program is a good way to do it. Maybe, getting rid of the mullahs running the country is a good way to do it. But if you're concerned about Americans joining the war, if you're concerned about Israel's ability to devastate you and your economy, this is not the way to express that concern. Quite on the contrary. All right. Let's see. So the questions are going to be now: what does Israel do? What is it target? There are some who would argue that the appropriate response is, is to take out. Remember, Israel doesn't have a border with Iran. Iran is far away. Iran is using its proxies, Hezbollah, and has used its proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas, to attack Israel. Israel is dealing with both. And so the next step is, what does Israel do with regard to Iran? No border. It's not going to launch a ground invasion. What can it do from the air? And it's got a number of potential targets. One, it can attack known stores of ballistic missiles and ballistic launchers that the Iranians have, many of them tucked into caves deep in mountains and bunkers deep in mountains. That would be an assignment better left to the Americans, but that would be one target. Second target, Israel could launch an attack, as I recommended in April, on every single one. There are dozens of these facilities, every single facility known to the Israelis to be engaged and to be responsible for the development and the progress in Iran's nuclear program. They could basically take that program by a decade. One option, of course, there is, again, some of this stuff is deep into the mountain, and there Israel, again, I think could benefit enormously from help with the Americans, at least on those targets where you need, a good big, bunker-busting bomb that Israel just doesn't have, and indeed doesn't have the airplane to carry. Those are the kind of bombs that the B-2s, B-52s could carry, not Israel. And then, so that's the nuclear program. I would also put it on the targets. Every single drone building facility the Iranians have, every single military infrastructure, all their military hardware, military industrial complex type facilities should be on the target list. And those are kind of the conventional things. Beyond that, right? And those are things that you could imagine the Americans helping. Of course, if you take out the drone capabilities, you're helping the Ukrainians, you're hurting the Russians. You're also protecting your own citizens because they can't launch those drones on you. They can't provide those drones to Hezbollah. Hezbollah is using Iranian launch. So all of those are easy to do. And Israel knows where they are. They know the targets. They know the facilities. They know exactly how to take care of all those sites. They know the nuclear sites in their location inside Iran, and Israel should be able to target them. A number of people, by the way, are pointing out online that this kind of attack on Israel, a massive attack, not of drones that can be shot down, but of hundreds of ballistic missiles, is clearly unequivocally an act of war. I mean, that's a little ridiculous to say in a sense, because October 7th was an act of war. Hamas could not have done what it did without Iran. Hezbollah's participation in the war since October 7th is an act of war by Iran. They're completely funded, supported, armed, and everything by Iran. They couldn't have done what they did without Iran. And the launch of missiles against Israel in April was an act of war. So, Israel's at war and has been at war with Iran for decades. This is not new. This is maybe an excuse to take the war seriously. Okay. I don't know why you need such excuses, but okay. Israel has no B-52s. It has no bomber capabilities. Its bombing capabilities are F-15s, F-35s, F-15s, F-35s, F-16s. That's what Israel has. Israel does not have a big bomber. It doesn't need it. It's never needed it. It's never, it's never bought any. It doesn't have strategic bombers. It doesn't have to fly very far. Now, with Iran, maybe it does. Israel also has ground-to-ground ballistic missiles and things like that, which it has not used anywhere, as far as I can tell. That technology has not yet been used. It has cruise missiles. Again, I don't think missiles that have been used offensively. Israel relies heavily on its Air Force, on its, again, F-15s, F-35s, F-16s, to inflict pain, even at distances that even in Iran, even in places like Yemen, which is 1,000 miles away, Israel uses those capabilities. It does not have strategic bombers. Let's see. Yaron has a PayPal link. Who is asking about PayPal? Is somebody asking about supporting the show? You can support the show on PayPal. YaronBrookShow.com/membership will take you to PayPal. You can also support it on Patreon. It's pretty easy on Patreon. You go to patreon.com, you put in Yaron Brook Show. Let's see. So those are targets. Of course, other targets. I'm sure Israel has a lot of insight into the location of, the Iranian leadership. Just as it did with Hezbollah, Israel could start decapitating the leadership of Iran. I am a huge supporter of this, in particular with regard to Iran, because I think that such a move would embolden the Iranian people maybe to rise up against this regime if they got support, in a sense, from the Israelis, by the Israelis taking out the leadership of the Revolutionary Guard, of the mullahs. Khamenei should be a target. The political institutions within Iran should be targets. The entire Revolutionary Guard should be a target. And by taking out the leadership, right, they would lay the groundwork, if you will, facilitate the Iranians themselves taking the initiative and actually going out and going after their own regime. This would be a way to facilitate a regime change, which is, I think, at the end of the day, the only way this war can end. I skipped over the other target, of course, the target that we've been talking about. We've skipped the other potential target, which is basically to shut down the Iranian economy, and you do that by taking out the oil facilities, the oil export facilities. Now, my guess is, and again, I'm guessing, and you guys can say I'm just, this is just a conspiracy, but my guess is that basically the Biden administration has put a veto on that have told them that they cannot do it. Biden does not want oil prices to go through the roof weeks before an election. So I'd be surprised if Israel actually went after oil facilities, well, they don't have refineries, but oil loading facilities, oil wells, and things like that. So Israel is unlikely to go after oil, even though it is the obvious target. The easiest target. It doesn't take much to ignite oil, right? You need don't need big bombs, small bombs. You don't need bunker busters. Israel can do this by itself. Action Jackson, I did see that. I'm going to get to it in a minute. Israel could attack the oil facilities. It is not, and it is not in Iran. It has done it for the Houthis, but the Houthis were importing oil, not exporting it. Or maybe they were exporting it, but who cares about the Houthis in terms of the volume of oil, even though the United States has an oil embargo on Iran and won't buy oil from Iran. They don't want global markets. They don't want global markets to price oil upwards. Another thing the Iranians could do in retaliation to anything Israel did or anything America did, is launch an attack on the Saudi oil fields. So that could be a way in which this could really get out of hand and really upset the Biden administration, is if the Iranians, which they have in the past already, attacked the Saudi oil fields. I hope that the U.S. is ready to defend those oil fields, at least with in a defensive capability, with air defense systems. Maybe the Saudis should sign a peace deal with Israel and get some of those Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 missiles to defend themselves. But that would be one way that Iran could retaliate if Israel attacked the oil facilities. But again, my guess is that the administration is telling the Israelis, don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't you do anything. Anything. Anything that has to do with attacking oil. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this administration, how particularly Kamala and how Trump, I think I know how Trump will respond, but how Kamala will respond to this. I think giving Israel the green light to respond is a minimum, but the appropriate response by the Americans would be to use this as an opportunity for America to take out the threat to America that Iran represents. And that means, I think that has to mean regime change in Iran. And that means going after leadership capabilities, the Iranian leadership. It's not a surprise that the Khamenei was sent into hiding without a beeper and without a walkie-talkie and without a phone, I assume. And who knows what Israel has, at its disposal in terms of what it could do to Iran that we can't even imagine at this point in terms of Israel's capabilities, what Israel has planted, anything equivalent to beepers, anything equivalent to that in Iran. It looks like Twitter is struggling to keep up with all the news. It's really slow, which suggests that more and more people are now getting their news from Twitter. Just as an aside, a couple of things as an aside, and I will note that there are pictures coming out from both the West Bank and from Gaza of Palestinians celebrating the Iranian attack, cheering it on, wishing for deaths in Israel, which suggests to me that they have not yet been defeated. So they need to be defeated. One way to defeat them is to take all the air out by crushing the Iranians. Crushing the Iranians, right? So that might, but this idea that the Palestinians in Gaza have now been pacified and they don't want war anymore, and is just not true. They are celebrating, Palestinians celebrating this missile attack, not too surprising. Several fires seem to be reported in communities near the Jordanian capital of Amman and in northern Jordan, caused by falling debris from successful interceptions as well as possible Iranian ballistic missiles. So yes, these ballistic missiles are falling where they are not supposed to fall, So it'll be, they're suffering the consequences of their support. Let's see what is going on here. Here's a good map. I don't know if you want to see this map. Let me see if I can pull this up for you. 1 second. Yeah, we have to go there. See if I can pull this map up for you that I just came across. Whoops. Not that. I think it's this. All right. 1 second. Give me a second. There's the map. All right. So this is a map. You see that little dot? The Karag Island? Karag Island. 95% of Iran's oil exports is through the tiny Karag Island in the Persian Gulf. If Israel decides to strike that, it's huge. It basically shuts down the Iranian economy. It destroys it. Now, I don't think that would be enough for them to do that, but that's 95% of all Iranian oil exports, which is, I don't know the exact percentage, but a massive chunk of the Iranian economy comes out of this little island. Israel could wipe this place out in minutes. So whether that is the target or not, I do not know. You can see that it's off the coast of Iran. Iraq is not far. Kuwait is not far. Saudi Arabia is right there. Qatar, you can see Qatar kind of jolting out there. But Israel has the capabilities of getting there. It has the capability of taking this out completely. Will it do it? I do not know. But just wanted to give you a photo of it to give you a sense of what we are talking about. All right, let's see. What else do we want to talk about? Yes, important. Just for you to get a sense of what it's like to be in Israel. Before it was publicly announced, I think Israeli authorities already knew, certainly the Americans already knew that the ballistic missile attack was coming. But just before sirens went off and Israelis were told to go into air raid shelters, a couple of terrorists boarded a light rail car in Yafo, in just part of Tel Aviv. They shot up the light rail car, then they got off and started shooting at people in the station there. They were shot dead ultimately, but not before they killed at least 8 people. I'm not sure how many injured they are, but a significant number of injured people. This is all really in the heart of Tel Aviv, and Yafo, which is part of Tel Aviv. So Israel not only is dealing with missiles launching and some of them landing, but also with terrorists opening fire with automatic weapons on public transportation. And during the attack, there was a rumor that the terrorists had taken over a hotel in Herzliya in the north, just north of Tel Aviv. That turned out to be wrong, but that is the kind of, turned out to be a false alarm. But that's the kind of stuff you're dealing with, right? I mean, people are dying from terrorist attacks. Missiles are coming in from the sky. I can't give you a sense of what it's like to live in Israel. And indeed, I don't really have a full sense of what it's like to live in Israel. I don't live there. But it's important to get a real sense of kind of what it must be like, where you could get shot in the street by some crazy terrorist right now. You could get missiles dropping on you from above, any of these things could happen, and life is very, very difficult. And this is not a kind of life that is acceptable to any civilized human being. And the meaning of that is that Israel needs to shut this down. And the only way to shut it down is for Israel to destroy its enemies. And I mean destroy. I mean, Israel's been way too nice to the Palestinians in Gaza, and it seems like way too nice to Palestinians in the West Bank. It has not unleashed its full military on Hezbollah and on its positions in the south. We'll talk about that in a minute. And Israel needs to take the reins of this thing and win it. Win it decisively, unequivocally. Let me just, there's more and more video of missiles, big chunks of missiles, craters in the ground, big craters in the ground. Wow, this is pretty big. In various towns in Israel. Again, I think Israel, partially due to its defense systems, but partially due to luck, there'll be no casualties. Also due to the fact that it has air raid shelters and people going to the air raid shelters. But there's a massive, massive hole here in a building, in a playground in Gdera, which is in the central Israel. Again, luck has played a role here in the fact that they're not casualties. And again, not to respond, not to retaliate, not to take this as all-out war would just be, I think, at this point, unthinkable on the part of Israel. Israel is also the IDF. Now, let's step back a second. So that's what's going on right now with Iran and the terrorist attack in Tel Aviv earlier today. In addition to all that, Israel entered Lebanon yesterday, and fighting has been very intense during the day today inside the south of Lebanon between Israeli forces and Hezbollah fighters. These Hezbollah fighters have been digging in. They've dug in, and many of the areas in which they dug in are areas that have civilian populations. So the Israelis, unfortunately, are being super cautious. But there was intense fighting. We haven't heard of any casualties or anything like that yet. But there are bound to be casualties on the Israeli side. I assume Israel has learned many the lessons of the 2006 campaign, which did not go well for Israel inside South Lebanon. It does look like things are getting more intense there, maybe because the Iranians are upping the heat, or maybe because Israel is taking what the Iranians just did as an opportunity maybe to extend its mission within Lebanon. But the IDF, it sounds like, has imposed a new military zone on the Lebanon border, and ground operations inside Lebanon might be intensifying. It's really, really hard to tell at this point. Again, fog of war and security and everything else, hard to tell exactly what is going on. But it's intense, and it's going to be intense for a while. Let's see if this is on. Yeah, so, we will see. Israel yesterday, we talked about this on the show yesterday, claimed that Israel yesterday, we talked about this, was going to have a limited short-term incursion into South Lebanon. It looks like it's going to be more than that. As I predicted, it really does look like this is going to be a major incursion, a major attack on. This is going on southern Lebanon, and that Israel's intentions are the occupation of southern Lebanon all the way up to the Litani River. Yeah, I mean, it's just astounding how many people online are concerned about everything except Israel actually defending itself. It will be interesting to see if the Iranians attacked any American facilities in the Middle East. One thing Iran does not want to do, I believe, is give the United States an excuse to launch an attack on them. So they might be treading carefully with regard to the Iranian militias in the Middle East. But Israel needs to take them out. The Americans need to help. We will see if any of that happens. Israel's, again, I will say this, Israel's arrow defense system is truly astounding, truly amazing, truly amazing. So I think at this point, we're waiting to see how Israel responds. It's likely to respond, I think, fairly quickly. At least that was the inclination. But who knows? Because the Americans, very much the Americans, could be holding them back. People here discussing this terrorist attack in Tel Aviv-Yafo. About a third of the Jaffa-Yafo population are Arabs. The terrorists don't care. I mean, you saw it on September 7th, right? They killed and kidnapped Arabs and they killed Thai people. They kidnapped people, Thai people who are working in Israel. They want to kill. They want to destroy. They want to create havoc. This is not just about, this is not just about Jews. This is about the destruction of Israel as a entity, and if that requires the destruction of anybody Arab or otherwise inside Israel, so be it. They really don't care. They really don't care. According to some Palestinian channels, as I said earlier, a man was killed on the West Bank from falling debris from one of these Iranian missiles. So that, I think, as far as I know, is the only casualty. If you remember from the April attack, the only real victim, significant victim, was a Arab Bedouin girl who was severely injured during that attack. Last I heard, she was recovering, so she was in an Israeli hospital and had recovered. And I think right now everybody's just waiting to see what is going to happen. All right. So I talked about strategically what this all means on, when was the show? The day before yesterday, Sunday show. So those of you who want to get a bigger picture, a little bit of a history about Iran, Israel, the United States, Hezbollah, I encourage you to go back to the show I did on Tuesday talking about the implications and the potential for a wider war. Yeah, here you go. According to an Iranian official who spoke to Reuters, both the United States and Russia were notified right before the ballistic missile attack against Israel. And it's probably the case that they were given enough notice that some kind of preemptive strike could have happened if the United States had wanted to do so. I'm not sure Israel would have had the time, but certainly it would seem like the Americans probably had the time to do so. Somebody asks, and I'm just going to take this even though it's not a thing, what does this have to do with Ayn Rand and her philosophy? It has everything to do with evil in the world, right? So Ayn Rand's philosophy allows us and gives us the tools to identify evil, to identify good, and to be able to comment on who is good and who is evil, to be able to recognize civilization and to recognize barbarism when one sees it, to recognize that in order for civilization, i.e. the people most likely to bring about ultimately a culture of reason and a culture of capitalism, are free countries, are countries like Israel, countries like those who we consider the West, and that West needs to be protected, needs to be defended, and because the alternative is authoritarian, totalitarian barbarism. And look, philosophy is for living. Philosophy is for analyzing the events of the day. Philosophy is to guide your life, but it's also to guide geopolitics. It's to guide how you should respond to a missile attack. It's to guide. Philosophy, at the end of the day, is at the root of every major decision, every important decision out there. So it is, of course, essential to analyzing and discussing and the events of the day in geopolitics. Indeed, if you look at Ayn Rand's career, if you look at what she did after she wrote Atlas Shrugged, she wrote some very philosophical essays, And she wrote a lot, I mean a lot, of current event essays using her philosophy, using her view of the world, using her understanding of altruism, using her understanding of face reality, don't evade, think long term, be rational, use reason, to analyze what was going on in the world, her understanding what evil was, and understanding the weakness today of those who are good. So if you think about what's going on right now, you know, the only reason Iran still exists is because of American weakness and American altruism. By the way, Ayn Rand in a Q&A, I think it was 1981, was asked, in a Q&A was asked, you know, what was their attitude towards the way America responded to the taking of the hostages in the U.S. embassy in Iran? And Ayn Rand said, and this is just stunningly prophetic, right? She said, the very fact that the United States did not respond forcefully and immediately to the taking of the hostages in the embassy is something the United States will pay for decades. Decades. Yeah, we're still paying for it. 40 years later, we're still paying for that. The very fact that this regime in Iran is being allowed to survive will mean we in America and our allies will pay for it. And Ayn Rand had that ability to see into the future. She knew, because she knew philosophy, she knew history, that when you appease evil, when you don't strike evil down, only bad things will happen. Things only get worse. Only get worse. So you have to have that philosophical perspective of there's no compromise between good and evil. When good and evil compromise, only evil wins. Every time there's a negotiated deal with Iran, Iran wins. Every time Israel is asked to de-escalate, Iran wins. Or the terrorist wins, or evil wins. Every time Israel negotiates with Hamas, Hamas wins. So you need a philosophical perspective of that. You need an objectivist perspective to fully understand that idea. Yeah, philosophy, I mean, this is a great example of the application of philosophy. The very fact that Israel, after 11 months, over 11 months, almost 12 months in a week, has not won the war in Gaza, has not eviscerated Hamas, has not eviscerated Hezbollah. The causes of that are not strategic military. The causes for that are philosophical. And you have to have philosophy to be able to understand. And what we do here in the Yaron Brook Show, is I try to apply Ayn Rand's philosophical ideas, my understanding of them, as I understand them. I'm not a spokesman for objectivism. I'm not a spokesman for Ayn Rand, certainly not. But my understanding of Ayn Rand, my understanding of the objectivist philosophy, and apply them to what is going on in the world right now. And I think the front line of the war between barbarism and civilization right now is in the Middle East, and that's why I spend as much time as I do on the Middle East. The other line is right here in the United States, but here I don't see who exactly represents civilization. So here we're fighting against everybody because they all represent the decline of the West. All right, let's see. All right, let me just say, Rand, thank you. Let me just say that this show cannot exist without the support from listeners like you. If you value my updates, if you value that I go on live when news is breaking, I was actually going to do the show today at 3 o'clock. But once I saw this, I thought I'd come on live and talk about what is actually going on. How many missiles would you like, Yaron? Targeted at whom? Targeted at whom? And how big? Are they big missiles, little missiles? So it is a show that cannot exist without you. If you value what I do, 300 people are on right now, actually 400 plus on Twitter and almost 300 on YouTube. That's 700 people. Somebody must value what I do and what I have to say. One way you can show that you value what I do and the commentary that I provide for breaking events is by coming onto YouTube and doing a sticker or doing a super chat question, and that way you can challenge me, you can comment, and you can come on here and both support what I do, but also shape kind of the agenda by asking a question. I answer all the questions that I asked in the super chat, and then in addition to that, you can, if you don't want to come here on YouTube, you can also go to Patreon, the Yaron Brook Show, and you can make a contribution there, support there, and you can do it monthly or you can do it at one time. You can also do that on PayPal. The link was here in the chat, but you can also find the link at yaronbrookshow.com/membership. Yeah, please become a supporter. Please become a supporter. Really, really appreciate it. PayPal, Patreon, or anywhere here. Let's see. Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy he gifted 10 YouTube memberships, which are different than memberships elsewhere. So if you got a membership from Jeremy, thank Jeremy. And if you just became a member, then you can find a lot of content. You can find a lot of content that is members-only content that other people can't access by going to the members-only section of the website and of YouTube. Sorry, and experiencing that content. I think you'll enjoy it. It's I just gifted 5 members as well, so some of you are getting memberships from my gifting, and it's a great opportunity right now, given how many people are on, to expose more people to this gifting opportunity. All right, let's see if we've got anything new. I mean, it doesn't look like anything is really happening. Everybody's kind of waiting to see how things develop in the next few hours, as will I. Let's go to the super chat while I will stay kind of attached to breaking news and watch for anything new happening and comment on it. But as I've said, it is time to take the Iranian regime out. Here's Lindsey Graham. I rarely agree with Lindsey Graham, but this is Lindsey Graham, the Republican senator, who supports Trump, even though I don't think Trump is quite as. This is a moment of choosing for the free world regarding Iran. I agree. The Ayatollah and Iranian regime are religious Nazis who want to destroy the state of Israel. Their words, not mine. They want to purify Islam and attack the United States. Again, their words, not mine. This missile attack against Israel should be the breaking point, and I would urge the Biden administration to coordinate an overwhelming response with Israel, starting with Iran's ability to refine oil. Iran does not refine oil. I'll just say that. It produces it. You'd think somebody like Lindsey Graham would know that. These oil refineries, not oil refineries, these are oil export facilities, need to be hit and hit hard, because this is the sort of cash the regime to perpetuate their terror. Funny thing is that for a very long time, Iran had to import refined oil from Saudi Arabia because they don't actually have enough refining capacity in Iran to produce oil for themselves. What is really a cash cow for the Iranian regime is not refining oil, but it's the sale of crude oil. And that island I showed you is not an island where they refine oil. It's their export facilities. It's the island in which they load oil onto onto ships that then take it to places like China, which is a big importer of oil from Iran. Right? Here's the UN. Here's the Secretary of the UN, Antonio Gutierrez. Always you can count on the UN to stand by justice and freedom and liberty. He wrote, I condemn the broadening of the Middle East conflict with escalation after escalation. This must stop. We absolutely need a ceasefire. In other words, complete and utter, unequivocal moral equivalency. Escalation after escalation. He's not condemning Iran. He's not condemning Hezbollah. He barely condemned Hamas for October 7th. No. And I've said it over and over again, and this makes me unbelievably angry because this is if just the UN said this, I wouldn't care. But these are almost verbatim the words of President Biden and the Biden administration. No. We don't need a ceasefire. What we need is escalation. What we need is a war geared towards victory. What we need is the destruction of the Iranian regime and anybody else who is committed to destroying the West. I mean, escalation is what is necessary when evil raises its head. Escalation is what is necessary when evil kills your own people. Escalation is what is necessary when those dedicated to an Islamic rule over the world, totalitarian, authoritarian rule over the world, dare to strike at a free country. Escalation and victory. There's a word nobody wants to talk about. Victory, total, complete victory over the enemy. That is what is needed, not a ceasefire. And again, only reason I'm getting angry is not because some idiot at the UN said it, but because this is the line coming out of the Biden administration over and over and over and over again. It's disgusting. Here's Naftali Bennett, the former Prime Minister of Israel, I hope the future Prime Minister of Israel. He says in response to the UN guy, you've got to be kidding. You condemn the broadening? You just aren't able to blurt the simple words. Quote, I condemn the Islamic Republic of Iran, who just shot roughly 180 deadly ballistic missiles towards the citizens of Israel. Quit. I'm not sure 180 is right. The number's probably higher than that. Here's Adam Massa, a guest on the Yaron Brook show just a few weeks ago. He writes, for 40 years, Iran has waged war against Israel in the U.S. through proxy armies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, etc., etc. Now that Israel is rightly destroying those proxy armies, Iran is removing the lies and deception and is attacking Israel directly. It has twice launched the largest missile barrage in history by one country against another. It's long past time to respond and destroy the cause of so much death and destruction in the world. And that cause is Iran. Let's be clear. Yeah, like Lucas says, what we need is nothing less than victory. Yes, quoting that amazing book, Nothing Less Than Victory. I highly encourage you guys to actually find it and read it. All right, let's see. Update my screen, and then I promise I'm going to get to your questions in a second. All right, let's do David Arsenault. David says, how bad could the U.S. respond if Israel ignores the U.S. restrictions on going after the Iran nukes or oil? How bad could the U.S. respond? I don't know. I don't think it could do much. I think Israel should absolutely ignore the United States. I don't think it could do much. We've got somebody on my chat that says Israel is done. You have no idea, mister. I mean, the ability of bad guys to be completely and unbelievably deluded is pretty amazing. It does look like several ballistic missiles fired by Iran against Israel were intercepted by the U.S. Navy. So the U.S. Navy participated in the shooting down ballistic missiles. That's great. And again, having the capability to shoot down ballistic missiles is so crucial. It's a program ultimately goes back to President Reagan for starting, but these are American-made anti-ballistic missiles systems. Israel has its own, the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3. They were unbelievably effective. And yes, Max, I encourage you to fly to Israel and go see how destroyed it really is. You really have no clue, as somebody who was just there, who saw the massive destruction Israel took from all those missiles from Hezbollah. I was actually there with my own eyes, not getting my info from InfoWars, but actually from reality. Israel is far from done. Israel hasn't even suffered any casualties. Israel is in great shape to now really take on. But yes, people out there are unbelievably ignorant, and they thrive on ignorance, and they relish their ignorance. They relish their ignorance. So keep it up. All right. So how bad could the United States retaliate if Israel just ignored them? I don't think very badly. I mean, the worst thing the United States could do to Israel, really, is there's no stress in my voice. What you're hearing is passion and excitement. But your ignorance is stunning, Max. The worst they can do, and this is a legitimate worry, is they can restrict ammunition supplies. They can stop supplying the Israeli military with ammunitions. Israel is using a lot of bombs, a lot of missiles, a lot of projectiles, a lot of ammunition in this war. It doesn't produce its own ammunition, not for the most part. Most of the ammunition Israel uses, it buys from the United States. So the one thing that it could do is restrict those ammunition sales, because Israel gets, I'd say most of the ammunition it gets as importation from the U.S. I'll keep calling you ignorant as long as you're ignorant, Max. All right, let's see. There's a cool picture of a anti-ballistic missile being fired from a U.S. destroyer. They're doing a fantastic job out there. Thank you, David. So America can afford to ignore the United States up to a point. I also think the political pressures on the United States not to handcuff Israel too much. I mean, remember that a lot of the people funding Kamala's campaign are also very pro-Israel. Very pro-Israel. So here's a lot. That's pretty funny. I mean, unrelated to anything, because I'm going over Twitter here. Elon Musk tweeted earlier, due to the immediate and excessive use of bold font on X, it will be removed from view in the main timeline. So you can't see. I'm also seeing pictures of Iran's largest power plant. That power plant could be taken out. I'm looking at pictures. 5 bombs, and Iran has very little power left. Maybe more than 5 bombs. It's actually bigger than I thought. But yeah, it could be easily done. That might make more sense for Israel to do than to take out the oil, given the Biden administration's objection to going after the oil. All right, let's see. This is pretty funny, actually. But this is consistent with Max. Iran is claiming that over 20 F-35 fighter jets were destroyed in Israel. Were destroyed in the Iranian missile attack on Israel, according to Iran's claim. Let me be the first to say, I'm sure I'm not the first to say, but because this report was published 27 minutes ago, BS. Not a single Israeli fighter jet was destroyed by the Iranians tonight. But, go with it. You can join, whoever reported that can join Max in the land of fairy tales. The anti-Israeli land of fairy tales that are just looking and constantly for reasons to believe that Israel could be destroyed when the opposite is happening. All right, let's go to Rand. Hey, Rand, thank you. If Israel had the moral courage to end this once and for all, do you think the U.S. could stop them from doing what is necessary? Obviously, defying the United States to this degree would have consequences. Look, I mean, it depends, right? I mean, the U.S. could literally put airplanes into the air defending Iran if they decided to do so. They could join in an attack on Israel if they decided to do so. So you certainly could imagine, a situation where Israel could be stopped. But that's just not realistic. That's just not going to happen, right? Not going to happen. The reality is that the United States is not going to intervene. I think if Israel used a nuke, that's the one thing that might cause the U.S. to really shut off Israel, to cut off its relations with it, to put an arms embargo on it, to really, really hurt Israel. Short of that, a lot of noise, a lot of chatter, a lot of objection, but not a lot of anything real that could actually damage Israel. So Israel has the capacity to ignore the United States and take out the Iranian regime. It indeed should do that. It should not ask for permission from Biden. It should encourage Biden to join in if they want to. It should maybe make the case that it's in American interest to join in, but they should basically take out the Iranians. They should put out a statement. They should make it clear what the goal is. The goal is the destruction of the Iranian regime. The goal is the destruction of the capacity of the Iranian regime to inflict harm on Israel. If that means taking out its nuclear program, taking out its military capabilities, taking out its military production capabilities, if that means taking out its leadership, whatever it takes, it needs to make it clear that it will do, and it will encourage America and other Western powers to join it in doing so, but it will say whether they join or not, this is what Israel is committed to doing. That's what Israel should do. And I don't think, at the end of the day, as long as it doesn't use nukes, and as long as it, let's say, minimizes civilian casualties on the other side, I don't think the West will say anything. I don't think the Americans will ultimately, they'll say stuff, but I don't think the Americans will ultimately do anything that actually hurts the Israelis. Mary-Eileen says, thank you, Yaron. My pleasure. Oh, Troy, thank you, Troy. Twice in 3 days, really, really appreciate it. 500 Australian dollars. And I hear you've signed up for the Brisbane conference. I will see you in Brisbane. I'll be in touch. Maybe we can get some dinner, lunch, something while I'm out there. I would really like to have an opportunity to say thank you in person for all your support over the last, since COVID, really, over the last 3 years. Troy says, the Iron Dome is a magnificent technological achievement, but incredibly, its efficiency is protecting Israeli citizens has hamstrung Israel. What should have been fully fledged response to Israel's attack years ago? I agree with you completely. The fact is that the Iron Dome, preventing Israel from really suffering the consequences fully of all the attacks from Hamas over all the many years, prevented Israel from actually going on and destroying Hamas years and years and years ago when it needed to, right? The Iron Dome has kind of shielded Israel from the extent to which its enemies want to kill Israelis, and therefore provided weak Israeli governments, many of them Bibi Netanyahu governments, from dealing with the threat. And that's ultimately what led to October 7th. The fact that Israelis weren't dying because of all the missiles from Gaza kind of gave the impression, okay, well, it's no big deal, so they send missiles once in a while. And it led to complacency and arrogance, and ultimately led to October 7th. The threat from Hamas should have been dealt with years and years and years ago, as soon as the first missile had taken off. And the fact that it wasn't has led to where we are today. So, yes. I think, Max, what you just wrote constitutes a threat, and that is good enough to block you. Let's see. And of course, we're seeing that again now. We saw that in April when, and the world views it like this, like in April, the Iranians launched 300 different projectiles towards Israel, and Israel did nothing. And part of that was the whole world went, well, nobody died, so they tried to kill a lot of you, but nobody actually died. And, so Israel's ability to defend itself on the defense has prevented it from acting offensively in the appropriate manner that its self-defense actually requires. And that has been just horrific. I mean, this is altruism again. If you don't actually see the sacrifice, if you don't see the victim, if you don't actually see the blood, you can't defend yourself. Okay, the IDF has just stated that the Air Force will carry out powerful airstrikes tonight throughout the Middle East. This is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I hope it's not just one night. I hope this is sustained, and I hope this is targeted towards not throughout the Middle East, because I think that is a mistake. This needs to be targeted towards the origin of all the parties in the Middle East right now that are at war with Israel. And that means, who cares about the Houthis? Who cares about the Iraqi pro-Iranians? This needs to be 100% focused and devastating to the Iranian regime. That is who needs to be destroyed. It's the Iranian regime. Don't deflect. Don't broaden this. I don't have anything against bombing all these other targets, but Iran is the source of it all, and it needs to suffer the full consequences of what it has just done. WCZN says, I will be back in New Zealand in time, so I hope to make it to Brisbane. I hope so too. Sign up on the website. Join us. It's going to be a fabulous conference. It'll be a lot of fun. Plus, it'll be great to meet all you guys in person. Thank you, Troy. Thanks again. Great comment, and thank you for the enormous support. Jeff, $50. Really, really appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you. Israeli officials state that over 180 long-range ballistic missiles were launched tonight by Iran against Israel, with at least half of the missiles believed to have been intercepted by the Israeli defense, as well as a combined allied force consistent of the United States and regional partners. So I don't know where the other half landed. So if 180 were launched and 90 were intercepted, where the other 90 and how come there are no casualties as a consequence of the other 90, falling or hitting targets or missing the targets, as the case may be. Hard to tell. All right, what are we? The Austin conference is at the end of February. And again, you can find information about the Austin conference, AynRand.org/start here. All the information about all the conferences is on there. Time for peace talks? God. Peace talks can only be effective after the bad guys have lost. First, bad guys have to be defeated. Then you can impose a peace. You don't negotiate with Iran. You don't negotiate with Hamas and Hezbollah. You don't negotiate with evil. You don't negotiate with terrorists. All right. Oyvind. Thank you, Oyvind. There's a lot to love about Norway. The stance my government has taken in this conflict, however, is truly embarrassing. Thank you for the content you're on. Thanks, Oyvind. And yes, it is embarrassing. Norwegians have been unbelievably anti-Israel during this time, and it's sad. It really is sad. However, I will be in Norway December 1st, I think. Is it December 1st? November 30th? Anyway, I'm going to do a whole event, a couple of talks, We're gonna have a whole afternoon of it, from 1 o'clock until the evening. We're gonna do a number of events. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So stay tuned. Oslo, in very end of November, early December, is going to be happening. Once I have links and everything, I'll update everybody. So again, hope to see my Norwegian listeners in Norway. By the time we get there. All right. Let me just see. All right. That was the latest news. Robert, the demand that Israel wait until they experience casualties is about as explicitly a demand for additional October 7th events as possible. No, they weren't ready that day. And more of that is what is demanded. Yes, it's unbelievable. But that is the state of the world. The state of the world is such that they want to see blood. You can't defend yourself unless you've literally already been shot. And so anybody demanding that it's just horrific. It just really is horrific. All right. Okay, nothing new there. Let me just check one more source. The most interesting sources I have for stuff happening in Israel actually comes from. I can only get on Telegram on my phone, but I'm talking to you guys, so it's hard to read Telegram at the same time. All right, so according to, here's the kind of news I get on Telegram, right? According to the Russian media, there are massive lines right now in Tehran in front of gas stations. So the Iranians, think Israel is going to take out their oil facilities. So they seem to have accepted that that's what Israel is going to do. And there's video of these lines. I mean, these lines are miles long of Iranian citizens lining up to get gas, fill up their cars before Israel takes out the oil capacity to import and export refined oil. Some of the missiles that actually hit, and not hit, but actually hit the ground, weren't knocked out of the sky, happened in the Negev, just like they did last time, and around the Bedouin population. So there are photos of some of these missiles hit, and these missiles are 10 meters long. 10 meters long. This one looks like it's intact, so it didn't really explode. All right. What's his name? Khamenei is tweeting. He's tweeting that victory is close. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard are saying that they hit 3 Israeli military bases in the Tel Aviv area and destroyed a bunch of F-35s. All BS. Let's see. All right, now we see, everybody's writing, now we see what Israel is going to do. Yeah, here's photos for one of the missiles landing in Jordan. All right. Yes, I talked about the 8 people killed in Tel Aviv by Islamic gunmen. I talked about that earlier in the show. Truly, truly horrific. David, thank you, David, for the $50. Do you read Haaretz while in Israel? What are your thoughts on Gadi Taub? He seems very pro-Netanyahu and also pro-judicial reforms. I don't read Haaretz in Israel, but I read Haaretz here. That is, I get Haaretz in English and I read it regularly. It is the equivalent of the New York Times, maybe a little to the left of the New York Times. It's, in many respects, a terrible newspaper. Very, very left-wing and very, very anti-Israeli self-defense. And, you know, I don't know Gadi Taub, but the fact that he's pro-Netanyahu and pro-judicial reform suggests to me that he is the token ultra-conservative on a massively left-wing, media outlet in Israel. So he is the one guy who's pro-Netanyahu and a Haaretz, which is very, 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 very much anti-Netanyahu in pretty much every aspect. It's Haaretz is vehemently anti-Netanyahu. So, yeah, I mean, but I don't know Gadi Taub specifically, but again, I know Haaretz really, really well. David says also, in ominous parallels, Peikoff puts sole blame for Germany's economic collapse on poor fiscal and monetary policy. He makes no mention of crushing reparation payments. Yeah, because I think he's absolutely right. I think the reparation payments could have been dealt with by a thriving German economy. That is, an economy that was free, an economy that respected property rights, an economy that did not try to pay the reparations off with inflated German marks, could have dealt with the reparations. The reparations were not as significant as people make them out to be. The people who make the reparations out to be the cause of World War II and the cause of German collapse are the people who are, who are advocates of the mixed economy. And Germany had a mixed economy and couldn't pay the reparations, so blame the reparations. Whereas what you should do is blame the mixed economy. Now, whether the reparations were the right thing to do after World War I or not is an open question for which I don't really have an opinion, a strong opinion right now. I'd have to think about it. But there's no question in my mind that it wasn't the cause of World War II. And there's no question in my mind that the German economy could have withstood those reparations if it had been liberated, if it had been properly protected. Ian Bremer writes, again, this is the guy, this is the foreign policy pragmatist. Iran attacked Israel in response to the assassination of IRGC leader in April. Hundreds of drones and missiles soundly defeated by the United States, Israel, and allies. Iran today attacked Israel in response to the assassination of Hamas leader in Tehran. Hundreds of missiles soundly defeated by the United States, Israel, and allies. Major difference, Israel, and specifically PM Netanyahu, is a stronger geopolitical position today, more interested in seizing the moment to reduce Iranian threat. Biden administration hope for restraint remains the same. Yes, Biden administration's hope for restraint. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of videos online showing ballistic missiles impacting the ground. The ones that are actually impacting the ground are not causing much damage or casualties. They are falling in open spaces, and together with the ones impacting the ground, there are also many that are being shot out of the air. The reality is that Israel, in spite of 180 plus ballistic missiles being shot at them, and only shooting down, let's say, 100 of those, has reported no casualties. And you could say, well, they're lying. Israel has a pretty open media space, and if there were casualties, Israeli media would report it. There's no way for Israel to completely suppress casualties if they are happening. All right, let's see. Oh, that's that I don't want. All right. All right, I'm going to press that. Okay, let's see. So that's David. Shazbot. We need to be able to attack the brigades by letting some through a gap in the fence If we only defend, we will lose the war. The Seven Samurais. Yes, I mean, that's a great movie. Highly encourage everybody to watch The Seven Samurais by Akira Kurosawa. A truly fantastic movie about, among other things, war. There is some pretty crazy footage out there appearing to show the impact of an Iranian ballistic missile in Tel Aviv, in central Israel. It is pretty amazing, given videos like this, that there are no casualties. Kurosawa, don't ask me how to spell it. I do not know. Somebody in the chat must know how to spell Kurosawa. They will do it. Let's see. The Islamic Resistance in Iraq, a coalition of Iranian-backed paramilitary groups in both Iraq and Syria, has now stated that they will launch attacks on U.S. bases in Iraq and across the region if the United States participates in an Israeli attack against Iran. That should terrify the Americans. I mean, the United States right now has enough military assets in the Middle East, in terms of planes and ships, to basically wipe out, to defeat pretty much any military force in the world. I'm not kidding. I don't think the Chinese would want to go up against what the United States has arrayed just in the Middle East right now. And certainly the Russians would not. Certainly the Russians would not. So this idea that the Islamic resistance in Iraq is threatening, I mean, the United States' response to this threat should be to wipe out the Islamic resistance in Iraq, which wouldn't be that hard. They've been attacking U.S. bases now for months with almost no American response. It's time to wipe them out. It's time to finish them off. They're asking for it. Do it. All right. Let's see. Shazbot. Oh, we did that, Shazbot. Thank you for the quote, Shazbot. Appreciate it. Spike something. How come the bank was willing to give me a 2.69% loan, given that the inflation here is larger than that? Won't they lose money? You got a 2.69% loan in the Eurozone? I don't know. Did you pay something up front? Was there like a fee to get the loan? Is there a balloon, some kind of fee at the back end? There must be some hidden interest payment inside there, unless this loan is being subsidized by the government in some way. Just by the name, this might be in Greece. Splitkonstan. I don't know where it is. If you can, let us know where this loan is and what kind of loan. And check the loan documents. Make sure that there's nothing hidden there. Because, they're losing money. If inflation is higher than 2.69, the bank is clearly going to lose money off of it. Again, unless it's being subsidized, which is possible. Very possible. Cook, it is time for the Islamic Republic of Iran to end. Yes. Khamenei should be target number one. Yeah. There's video now shown of tunnels in southern Lebanon, I think, if we can trust this video, being destroyed. So Israel has munitions inside the tunnels that are being blown up. This suggests special forces are being there. They've gone inside and they've detonated. At least that's what it looks like from here. Maybe it's from the air, but I don't think so. It really looks like it's imploding from within. So it means Israel has, part of the video is that they're being attacked from the outside. So you got both. You got both happening. According to some news sources, while the Islamic Republic launched the missile attack on Israel, Iranians in the streets are shouting, "Death to the dictator." Death to the dictator. This is why I think that if Israel attacks the regime itself, the leadership itself, there is a good chance the Iranians will take the opportunity to rid themselves of this regime. Yeah, I'm willing to sign up for a loan for 2.69%. I'll go for more than. Kylie says he wants 500K. I'll do more than that. That's less than my mortgage. Maribel says, philosophy at work, I consider duty a four-letter word, except when preceded by the word husbandly. Cook, Ian Bremer sounds like such a monumental goof. He sounds like a conventional, middle-of-the-road, Henry Kissinger trained foreign policy expert. And I put expert in quotes, right? So I don't deem him an expert. More pictures of endless lines of cars at gas stations in Tehran tonight. Hopefully, the oil infrastructure in Iran is going to evaporate. Some of these news headlines or something. All right. Hey, Yaron, how much money do you think is enough for comfortable retirement in the United States? Thank you for your shows and rational insight, inspiring. I don't know. I mean, it depends on your standard of living, quality of life. I mean, the number for me is not going to be a number for you. I mean, my number is pretty high. I know how much I would want to spend on an annual basis. So think about how much money do you want to spend on an annual basis in retirement? And I don't know. I don't know what a rule of thumb would be, but let's say multiply that by 10. And that's at the very least what you should have saved up. Right? I mean, that's just a very, very, very rule of thumb thing. But I can't give you an answer without knowing how much you want to spend. Are you going to retire in Iowa, or are you going to retire in New York City? Are you going to retire and want to travel the world? Are you quite happy to be on your front porch in a rocking chair? So it really depends on what kind of life you want to live. Are you going to go to 3-star Michelin restaurants? Are you going to eat at the local? You're going to cook food for yourself, right? So all of that will ultimately determine the thing. But what you need is the number of annual spending that you expect to incur over the rest of your life, and then depending on what kind of return you think you can get on your savings, you can then figure out how much you need to have saved. Okay, U.S. National Security Advisor Jack Sullivan, the no escalation Jack Sullivan, is now saying that Iran will suffer, quote, severe consequences. Ooh, I don't know, they might have more sanctions. Jack Sullivan, I don't know what severe consequences counts in Jack Sullivan's world. I just don't know. I really don't know. Suffer severe consequences with tonight's ballistic missile attack against Israel, and that the United States will work with Israel to make sure that is the case. I have a feeling, call me a cynic, I have a feeling that the United States will work with Israel to make sure that the actual severe consequences that Israel would like to inflict on Iran will be moderated so as not to escalate. God, I don't believe a word of these people say. Thank you, esoteric dichotomy. Sorry I didn't have a number that I could give you. A morning go. Mashid Alijad is pointing out on X how Iran is using their people as human shields by not clearing its airspace of civilian flights. Yeah, I wouldn't get on a plane in Iran right now. Although maybe Iran has reason to believe Israel has not yet launched its counterattack. I wouldn't be as confident as if I was living in Iran, I wouldn't get on a plane. Matt says, thanks, Yaron. Appreciate it, Matt. Robert, Support the Yaron Brook Show and the best objectivist informed news and commentary by far. If you love the Yaron Brook Show, and you know you do, show your support sincerely, YBS fans of Michigan. Thank you, Robert. Really, really appreciate it. Appreciate the plug, appreciate the support. Yes, and you can support the show right now, right here. If you're on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, you can come on over. We've got a lot of people on Twitter listening to the show, 557. And come in and you can support the show. And we've got almost 300 people here on YouTube. You can just do a sticker for 99 cents, and that'll really have an impact on how much money we raised today in support of the Yaron Brook Show. So feel free to just click on that $ right below the chat feature within your stream. And you can make a small, large contribution, or you can become a member, or anything else you do. Please do so. It will helps this show keep going. It's what funds the show. Show cannot exist without support from listeners like you. Of course, you can also do it on Patreon. You can also do it on PayPal. Just plug in the Yaron Brook Show, and you can support it any way you want. Paul says, I like seeing Brook Media on my monthly statement. Yes, if you pay on PayPal or Patreon, what you're paying into is Brook Media. That is my C corporation, my C corporation, not LLC, but an actual C corporation that owns the Yaron Brook Show and pays me a salary for doing this show. All right. Let's see. Ian says, help! I can't wait. Korean dramas, great recommendation. Itaewon class. I can't waiting. There's some typo there. I can't something Korean dramas. But yes, I'm glad you enjoyed Itaewon class. It's a stunning show. In the sense that it has a character with full-on, unabashed, uncompromising integrity. And we're not talking about a superhero, Superman, just a regular guy. In every respect, a regular guy. Except one respect, and that is he has uncompromising integrity. And he's ambitious. You should watch. I can't stop watching Korean dramas. Good. What we want then, Ian, is a regular recommendation. We want recommendations. I've Itaewon class, and we've got my favorite, which is what's my favorite Korean show? You guys know. Name slipped my mind. But yeah, we'd like more recommendations for Korean shows from you, Ian, given that you can't stop watching them. Put it to some use. Collective use. Share it with us. Chad says, does the Iranian regime, top tier, face internal dangers due to their weakness in pawing at Israel? They do. I think they absolutely do. Mr. Sunshine. Thank you, guys. Mr. Sunshine. That is my favorite TV show, probably of all time. But yeah, I think it does. I think the Iranian regime is weak. Certainly it's internally weak. The people of Iran do not want it. They don't want it around. You saw that in the low participation rate in the latest election. And this attack on Israel is going to provide Israel with the opportunity to give the Iranian people and the regime and everybody a nudge towards the destruction of the regime and the replacement with a free regime. So, yeah, it's a huge danger for the Iranian regime right now. And let's hope it's a danger that materializes in a sense that this is the beginning of the end for the Iranian regime. That would be pretty darn amazing if that were true. All right, let me just do this. Anonymous user, thank you. Manas, thank you. Mary Aline, thank you. I'm going through the stickers. Sylvanus, thank you. Marabins, thank you. Justin, thank you. Mike, who else do we have? Mary Aline again, thanks. Whoops, and I skipped forward. We've got Tyler, thank you. And Jeff, I think I thanked already. We've got WCZN. We've got Chad, 50 pounds sterling. Thank you, Chad. Very generous. Doron Regev. Chad, another 50, looks like. unless I got confused there. All right, and John Bates. I see John. And if I missed anybody, thank you, right? Thank you. Really, really appreciate the support. All right, WCZN says she's going to come to Brisbane. We caught that earlier. Thank you. I'm looking forward to meeting. Mary Aline, peace talks at this point would be sanctioning evil. Absolutely. Ryan says support YBS. Yes, keep supporting YBS. $2, $3, $5, $10. Just do stickers, guys. A lot of you have never supported the show before. A lot of you watching right now. Please consider doing so. Really, really, really appreciate it. Dan, thanks, Yaron, for your excellent shows and news. Thoughts on Netanyahu's message to the Iranians. I thought it was excellent. I thought appealing to the Iranians directly, I wouldn't be surprised if Netanyahu knew that this was coming, that this attack on Israel from Iran was coming, and therefore it was an opportunity for him to appeal to the Iranians. It was an opportunity for Israel to combat the Iranians, and therefore an opportunity for the Iranians to stand up for themselves against the authoritarian regime. So I think it's great. I think it's great. So yeah, I think it's good that Netanyahu did it. Again, Netanyahu gives great speeches. So, I mean, he should be in charge of Israel's PR. He gives great speeches. He knows who to address. He knows how to address them. He knows to do it forcefully. And he did a really good job with the Iranians. Bradley, thanks for everything you do. I appreciate it, Bradley. Dewuski, did you catch Javier Milei's speech he gave at the UN? I caught parts of it. And it was excellent. Maybe the best speech given at the UN ever. I mean, it really hammered at the UN. I mean, I wish what would have happened is that Milei had refused to go to the UN, withdrawn Argentina from the UN, and given that speech on the side at a New York venue. It's sad to see people like Milei, and anybody really, sanction the very existence of this evil organization called the United Nations. So that is, but yeah, it was, I mean, if not for all this stuff, breaking news on Israel, I would have covered it in more extensively, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunity to cover Milei in the next few days and weeks. All right, it appears that we're out of questions. So I should thank Darlene and Sam and Bradley and Tyler. I think I thanked earlier. And let's see, Dewuski and friend Hopper and Stephen Hopper for their support, for making it possible for me to do this show. And thank you all. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully, well, you're here, so I take it you get value from what I'm doing. Don't forget, you can support the show on Patreon. Please do so, patreon.com, and just put Yaron Brook Show on it, and you can become a monthly supporter. That is a massive, massive, massive help. Thank you. First super chat ever, ML Barbour. Thank you. Really appreciate that. And you can keep doing super chats here for a little while I chat. There's just no, right now, the show is dedicated to breaking news. I just don't see any, and I don't have any questions on your end. And the news does not seem to be that different, but I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. Thursday is a little iffy, but tomorrow I will definitely be back with the show, and we will have more to say about. Well, we'll see what Israel does, and we'll see what Israel does when it is New Year's Day tomorrow in Israel, I think, or is it this week sometime? Anyway, I don't know. What do I know? But Jewish New Year is coming up. Here at any point, and so Happy New Year to those of you who celebrate it. I don't, so I that's why I don't know when it is, because I don't really celebrate it. But interesting also timing for this attack, given New Year is upon us. All Yeah, I mean, John Bolton says, Joe Biden has let Iran get away with too much for too long. The White House needs to make our commitment to Israel stronger than ever. I don't want any commitment to Israel. I want a commitment to victory. I want a commitment to defeating America's enemy. It's not about Israel. It's about America. At least from Americans' perspective, this should be about America. This is a good one. Andrew Clavin. I mean, I often disagree with Andrew Clavin, but this is really good. He says, I hope Israel can save Western civilization before Western civilization can stop them. That's exactly right. I hope, just to replace Western civil with America, I hope Israel can save America before America can stop them from saving America. Yep. Anyway, unless something dramatic happens in the next few hours, I will see you all tomorrow. If something dramatic does happen, I might come on live again to quickly cover it. Otherwise, I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. For those of you in Israel, I know there are a few of you. Stay safe. Stay safe. Don't let your guard down. It's going to be dangerous in the next few hours and days, as it seems to be constantly in Israel these days. All right, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye.